This is Butterflies of Wisdom with your host, Wynn Charles. This podcast is designed to bridge the gap between the able-bodied and the disabled. We all have stepping stones on our path to success, and we hope you enjoy this path of learning about life from all perspectives.
Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. Today, I really have a fascinating guest. I don't know how lucky I get on the days that I don't know which way is up. Today's one of those days, by the way. I stay grounded by the people I get to interview and by the people who are inspired by me and by the people who I get inspired by, including my dad and everyone else. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Miss Apryl Miller take it away. And Miss Apryl has been featured all over the place because of her lifestyle that she designed. And funny enough, she has a degree in fashion designing, which, as I told her previously, I'm going back to school for fashion journalism. So funny enough, we connected on that level. But enough with me rambling. I'm going to let Miss Apryl take it away.
Okay, Wynn. First, I want to thank you for inviting me to be on your show. I'm really excited to, share the kinds of things that I know with your listeners and to learn more about you also in the process. So in terms of how I got to be where I am today, I always think of myself as being an accidental artist because where I am now and what I do now there's things that happened to me because I was living my life, not that I had a grand plan or a grand scheme of any sort. And so what happened was that I came from a very creative background. I wouldn't say artsy background. My parents weren't artistic. We weren't drawing pictures and, sculpting and working with clay and things like that. But my parents had very creative minds, and so I grew up with a lot of making of things. We made Christmas cards, we made Valentine's cards, we sewed things, we made candles, Barbie doll clothes, ornaments for our Christmas trees, all our food from scratch. So on and on and on like that. So it's this kind of like DIY background, but I think that in my gen, probably at that time, a lot of people grew up making things because we didn't have such a plethora of cheaply made goods available to us like we have in the world now. So many people did just make their stuff. So what happened was I've always been a poet, and so I've, written off and on over the years. I went to fashion design school, but I didn't really do much with it. I started to manage a clothing store. But the catalyst for my career was after we had purchased this large apartment, and I knew that I wanted something very different, very creative, and a special supportive environment in which to raise my young children. And so the fact that I grew up with a creative background, with that idea of the DIY sort of feeling you can just do things and you don't have to study, just make stuff. It's that kind of mindset. So I had that. And then the fact that I became a mother, and then of course the third part of the mix was having this home that I wanted to make for my passion for my children. And so I didn't have any experience. I wasn't an artist at the time. I was a creative, like I said, in quotes, person. So eventually I had to become the artistic director of the project. And what happened was I made this amazing vernacular art space, and, bit by bit, it's captured the attention of the world. And there was no plan or scheme or anything on my end to have that happen. I was a mother making a creative, protective nest for my children, and I did that. I've raised very creative children. But I also have done these other things in the world because I discovered myself as an artist. And so now I spend my time making art, talking to people, giving artist talks about my work. And it's a life that I didn't seek, and I probably would never have imagined that I would find myself here. And so this space has been described by Salon.com as one of the most immersive, intricate, habitable art installations in the city of New York, and that this space is extremely important when looking at the history of immersive art installations. And so that's my story of how I come to be here talking with you, Wen.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so it's interesting because I was talking to another person, Natasha, of Empowering Women, and you'll hear that interview, the same day April's interview comes out. And
okay.
I was talking to her this morning, and she goes, we all come from the philosophy of you need to be a teacher, a lawyer, or a doctor. So what did Wynn chose? A teacher. What did Natasha chose? A lawyer. So it's interesting that you come from, and my dad was the more creative mindset than my mom. And still to this day, I mean, my stepmom is the creative mindset more than my biological mom. I don't know what my biological mom's problems were. I shouldn't say problems because I love her dearly, but I like the more creative aspect of a parenting, just like you, April. And so,
yes.
What made your parents think outside the box? Literally. I mean, what most parents who have kids, either disabled or not, say to their kids, you need to be a doctor, a teacher, or a lawyer. So that's what, and you also need to get a college degree, not in fashion designing and not in fashion journalism. Thank you very much, Mom. And so, what made your parents think that you were creative enough to live your dreams?
Well, see, I don't think that, I come from a big family. There are 7 of us kids. So we were kind of like a bunch of wild weeds, growing in a lot somewhere.
Yeah.
We were just it was anarchy, and the kids kind of ran the store in a sense, not completely. I'm joking also too. But, I think that, that at the same time, it wasn't really that we were encouraged to do this or do that so much. It was more this idea that my parents did things like my mother always wrote this amazing rhyming Christmas letter every year, like a couple of pages, and she'd throw in writing that as kids had done during the year, like poems or stories or pictures we'd drawn. She told stories about us, stories about her friends and their families and our travels as a family and everything. And there was always my parents read books to us as kids. We always got books at Christmas time. We always listened to music. My mom was a music teacher, and she also was a church musician. My father was a pastor. And they were just, they were creative people, but they were not like I said, artsy people. But we always were doing things, making projects, do with what we had. Like my parents didn't go out and buy us Halloween costumes. We made our own costumes somehow. My brothers took safety pins and bath towels and put them around their neck, and those are their superhero capes. But, my parents didn't go out and buy us costumes. They would go and buy us superhero capes and stuff. And so we were always with my mom's supplies from teaching, using our paints, and we had like, a little schoolroom set up in the basement that we played school, and just a lot of like language and language play going on. And this idea that when you make something yourself, you make it your own because you've made it yourself. And that was deeply ingrained, this concept of goods that were unique. The making of unique goods was a very big thing in my family. And so I've carried that on without even realizing it, in my life and in my artwork. And so that's one way that I push myself when I make my work, because I don't want to sit here and just, kind of flop around and, sort of like go down the stream. I want to push myself in my work. I want to go to places I haven't been before. I want to keep moving out into the wild, wild west of where I know where I am, but I've never been there before, if that makes sense. And so the idea of putting everything I have into my work, yes, it's really important to me. Like when putting this house together, I think about it as, you see, I had no experience, no education, no knowledge. I hadn't even done artistic things really to speak of to that point. So I took everything I didn't know and I put everything I didn't know into this space. I poured all my nothing into this space. And that's why it works.
Yes. So you poured your heart and soul into this house. And not only as an artist, but as a interior designer, because this is your house. And so why do you think parents tell their kids, and my mom was the same way, you must be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, you must go to college to get one of those 3 degrees. And even though my mom supported me, I don't think she would necessarily like that I'm walking away from education, but you can make more money as an artist than you can in education, and people know that. And so why do you think that parents are still telling their kids, even in these bad economic times, even though we're coming out of 2008, 2009, that you still have to be a teacher, you still have to be a lawyer, you still have to be a doctor?
It's so funny because my mother was always pushing me to be a teacher. And I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. And I'm like, no. Even though I actually have done some teaching, and I love teaching. I'm a really good teacher. Did I want it as a career choice? No, I didn't want that for myself. But, I think that my parents always told us, well, you can't make any money in the arts, so you shouldn't even think about doing that. And it isn't so much that we were so artsy that they saw something they should tell us we shouldn't do. It wasn't even that. But that was the message that we were given, was that we were raised with the idea of like getting a paycheck job. And I think that my parents they wanted us to go to college and learn and experiment. They weren't parents who wanted their kids to go to college just to develop a profession and get a job. So they wanted us to experiment. Yeah, get a degree and get a job. Yeah. They wanted us to get jobs, but they also looked at the college experience as being very exciting and a time of, learning new things and broadening one's horizon. And just the idea of being educated for education's sake was something that was important to my parents. But definitely, I think that they were afraid of our not being able to get jobs and take care of ourselves. And so I think that's why parents do that. But at the same time, see, part of my story is that I never really knew what I wanted to do, but something was always following me around. And I always felt this presence behind me and sometimes over my shoulder. It would get closer to me sometimes. And it really bothered me because I didn't know what it was. And it was just, yeah, it was an indefinable presence. I couldn't say what it was, but it was definitely there following me around. So I try and forget about it because I didn't understand what it was. And, I just kind of say to myself, can you just leave? Time for you to leave, Napoleon, right? So what happened as I grew older was I began to recognize that it was my creative self that was following me around and waiting for me to discover the message it had for me. And I didn't know what that was. I had no idea. I went here and there and did this and did that and tried this thing, tried another thing. And yet this whole thing was waiting for me without my knowledge. And so it's just that really things that you can't explain or really can't understand, that happen to people. And so once I was, everything was right for me to accept it, then everything came flooding out of me. Like I'd been percolating for decades and decades, and the time was right for those parts of myself to be shown to the world. And so everything came out with a vengeance. And I really haven't stopped producing work since then.
Yeah, because could you please leave nagging attitudes? Doesn't help. I mean, no one knows this yet, but I am a child of music. My dad, they know that my dad was a professional sound mixer for Bob Dylan, Neil Diamond, Pink Floyd, John Denver.
But that's cool.
So, yeah, very cool. And so when he retired from that, he decided to open up his own audio entertainment company, and we closed the doors on that in 2010, right after my biological mom died. But all my family has been entrepreneurs. Why I chose teaching, I don't know. But since a child, I've been exposed to really good music. And so I wanted to go teach music as a teacher. And now, this year, my dream is finally coming true because I wanted to make myself happy again and make myself joyous again. And then, in the midst of me teaching music, I'm getting a fashion journalism degree and then branching out on my own to do my creative work. And I don't think that parents, except my dad, understand that kids need to be creative. I asked my dad, I said, how do you feel about me becoming not only a solo entrepreneur, but a freelance journalist? He goes, great. I thought he was going to give the typical dad response, oh, when you need to be stuck in a cubicle with your disability and that's perfectly fine. No, he goes, great. You can make as much money and enjoy your life. And so I think that parents need to look at what they're telling their kids and reconsider what they're telling their kids.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's, parents get worried about what their kids are going to do and stuff. But I think too that if you nurture those qualities, or at least allow your children to express them and feel them as they're growing up, that in terms of their deciding they want a career that's in the arts somehow, they feel more confident to move towards that because it's an experience, a language that they've been immersed in as children. And like both of my daughters are creative, and the one is in a rock band, and the other one is a DJ, and they both have incredible personal style. And this is because, of course, I fostered, the self-expression in them. It's because they've lived in this very creative, supportive environment. And at the same time, I let them be who they were. I didn't try and push my aesthetic on them at all. And so it's really interesting because what's happened the last couple of years is that they've both come into their own with their own personal style, and they have very different styles, one from the other, very different. But it's really matured in the past couple of years, and they're 21 and 24. And so they've really come into their own now with their styles. And like I said, I let them, I didn't try and make them dress like me or wear colors like me. And at one point, my older daughter was a teen, and she told me she had to get new sheets. And I said, fine, we'll just pick out what you want and then we'll just order it. So finally she said, I want black sheets. So here's this colorful space, over 150 different paint colors in the space, and she wants black sheets. So I said, honey, that's fine. You can have black sheets. I'm fine with that. So what happened was later, she told me she didn't really want black sheets. But she was just trying to, poke and dig at me because she was a teenager. So it's just funny because I didn't give her the reaction she was seeking. I just said, yeah, that's fine with me. You can do that. So I really let them do who they thought they were. And so their style now, like I said, it's really, really amazing. And, they're just really creative kids, and we all have a really good relationship together. And so it's a nice thing that what I was hoping would happen has actually been the outcome. But aside from them being brought up here, what I didn't factor in was how living in this environment would influence me as I also grew within the space. And so I think that, my home has fed all of my other creative work and creative projects and things as I've, gone along to do different things. And I feel like what we all want in life is to have a never-ending conversation with another person. And I feel that what I've done is I've created a never-ending conversation within the space of my home, because there's so much communication and language and experiences that exist in this space, that it's a place that is always giving back to the people that were within it. And so it's just been a very unusual living situation for both myself and my children all of these years.
So, yeah, it's a very unusual situation, and most disabled people don't do this. Most disabled people are going to be running to their caregivers or their moms and dads and saying, can I live the life April's kids live, and can I live the life Wynn leads? Don't do that, because you have to ask your parents first. And I'm putting that in there because parents are going to be like, what is Wynn teaching to you today? How to live a creative lifestyle? Oh, I don't think so. And April's laughing at me because she knows it's the God's truth. But have you ever considered publishing a book on the lessons of creativity?
I have thought about that before. And I'm starting to do more and more podcasts. I've spent years and years writing about my work and talking about my work and refining it. But initially what happened to me was that I made this, my home basically, and the press started coming and they wanted to interview me, but I didn't really have anything to say because I couldn't explain what I'd done here. I hadn't gotten to the bottom of it yet. I didn't know the why of the different things I'd done. And so I spent a lot of time by myself just writing and asking myself questions and answering my questions, so that, because, no one really knows except for me. Other people can project what they think they see when they look at it, which is fine. Yeah. But
Yeah,
to really
exactly.
be able to say this was my original intention. And so now I can speak very eloquently about my work. And like I said, I'm beginning to put more ideas together as I'm doing more and more podcasts, and also just the more artist talks that I've given. I've probably done about 50 artist talks at this point. And, I have my guiding artistic principles. I have an article on LinkedIn that's called How to Do Everything Wrong. Because I do everything wrong and backwards.
Wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
How to do everything
How
wrong.
to do everything wrong. And be a starting artist. Thank you very much.
But you see, I do everything wrong and backwards. Because when you do everything wrong, it turns out right. Because I don't approach my creative life through the same channels that most people do. I don't match colors. I mix up shapes and patterns as much as I possibly can. I have no color schemes I stick to. It's not math. It comes from the gut. It comes from inside. And so I don't like to do symmetrical things. I like to do asymmetry. And so on and on and on. I do everything backwards. I try to be blissfully unaware of trends on all levels, because trends put people to sleep and make them sheep. It's about the balance of opposites and absence of themes. So I have a lot to say, obviously, about many subjects. And that's why I'm doing more speaking engagements. And I know I have more than one book in me. Also, like in my writings, too, I have a whole series that I call Dispatch from the Pew that I write when I go into church. Actually, I'm in church on Sunday writing this Dispatch from the Pew during the church service. Yeah. And, it's being irreverent as only the reverent can be. So I've got a number of different writing projects in addition to my visual projects, too. And so, at some point, I would like to get more serious about looking into getting a book done, but not quite yet, though. I don't think. But, go ahead.
Well, at the moment you decide to do it, text me, because I'm an expert at self-publishing books, and I've self-published books since I was 23 years old. And
I know you have a lot of them. I noticed you have a lot.
Yeah, I did. And a book would be great, because you're cut from a different class. If you people haven't noticed yet, I'm cut from a different class. I mean, here I am.
No, I think you are too. I think you are too.
At age 30 and pursuing a completely different degree than my original degree. And it's like, I'm cut from a different class. I know what I want. I know how to get it. And I know where I'm headed.
See, when this is what I call it, it's Weirdos Unite. Okay, honey, that's what it is.
The Weirdos
Join the club.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Kermit the Frog and Animal of Muppets unite. Weirdos unite. And let's go Fuzzy Bear in for good kicks. And the Weirdos unite. I love it. And so,
I'm a leader of weirdos, man.
Unite.
I'm a leader of weirdos.
Well, people think, oh, Wynn is such this great, and now Wynn has this disability. Wynn is quiet. Wynn is this, and I'm like, no, no. I will get whatever needs to be done.
Because when you see, from my perspective, once I stopped listening to other people and began to really look at myself and to trust my own feelings and thoughts and trust my own intuition, once I was able to really believe in myself, that's when things really happened with my artwork in terms of other people noticing, not in the making of it, because I never had trouble making it. That's not a problem. But it's the idea of other people being to look and say, wow, you have something going on here. And it's always been, I've been looked at like I was a kooky person or, kooky, my stuff is really different, And, but that didn't deter me. I didn't change my work because people were kind of thinking it was really different, meaning as in different doesn't mean it's, it doesn't mean it's a positive, it means it's a negative, right? Because people didn't understand my work for a long time and they didn't take me seriously. But that doesn't mean that I allowed that to change my artistic output. Nope. I continued to do the same thing, and eventually by being true to myself and becoming stronger within myself as a person, then eventually I began to get more and more attention. And right now, in about 3 weeks, I have a production company that's going to be here. And they're shooting a 12-part series for a documentary about interesting people and their unusual homes. And so they're going to include me and my family in one epi in this documentary. So that's going to happen pretty soon. Probably it's going to air, I think, around the beginning of next year. And then also, I'm going to be signing with the gallery really soon. And the gallerist wants to do a solo exhibit of my work, and then she wants to start taking my work around to the art fairs. And so it's just like this, you see, everything that you do, I always tell creative people that are just starting out, I always say, listen, you have to make sure that you document everything. If you do a performance, take pictures of it. Take pictures of your work. No matter what it costs you, make sure that you show you have a history.
Yeah.
And the other part of the picture is try and get as much publicity as you can. Even if it's like a little blog or whatever.
For me.
Start somewhere. Start somewhere.
That's good advice
Start
for me.
contacting people. Yes. So you'll begin bit by bit to build up a press resume. And so I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I don't usually think about it, but I went and looked recently. I have a lot of things. So now when a gallerist looks at me, she goes, oh, okay. So I look like I've been doing stuff, which I have been. And so, you have those moments where everything that you've done up until that point, right at that point in that moment, everything you've done before matters. Because you can show, people will see you've been making work, you've been getting publicity. They can see that you're putting effort into your career, and that goes a long way with people. It's not enough to just come to people and say, look at my work, is really good, look at my work, it's great. It may be great, but that won't get you attention though. But if you have history, and you can show that has a meaning for the powers that be.
And this, just to let you guys know, and I'll let April know this too, this podcast will be might be changing depending on how my teachers want me to interview people. So this podcast may be going on the road. I don't know. And so I may be doing live interviews out in the field. So that's always, and I'm going to tell my teachers, not only do I have cerebral palsy, I have a podcast because now we're in the creative field. Now Wynn's in the creative field. So this podcast may be changing in the next couple of weeks here because all depending on what my teachers want me to do. And I'm going to tailor this podcast to my artistic portfolio, as Apryl Miller said, and then I'm going to use it as a leverage point in my classes too.
Yes. And, if you change it up and if you do make it more about fashion and creativity, again, that will just be, and you start working on that now, then you finish with school. And again, there's your history. There's your history right there. There's your history.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that will go a long way. A very, very, very
I thought about this. I thought about this yesterday, and then when you said, I actually started thinking about this when we had our initial phone call, and like, yeah, if I'm going into creative field, I'm going to have to adjust my podcast. So thank you for giving me the kick that I needed to adjust my podcast, because, no, I seriously do thank you, because
You're welcome.
I wasn't stuck necessarily, but I needed to change it up a little bit. So just to let you guys know, this podcast, maybe it won't be going away, let's put it this way, but it will be changing due to the space I am in right now.
It will be in a state of morphing when it'll be morphing.
Yes, morphing into a bigger butterfly. Morphing into a bigger butterfly. Let's just put it that way. No pun intended. Morphing from the small butterfly to a big butterfly. And so, April, where can people, a larger one, exactly. Where can people find you, April? And then I'm going to let April ask me a couple of questions, which I already know the answers to, because April kindly texted me the questions that she was going to ask me. So I'm going to let April try and figure out where people can find her, and then I'm going to let April ask me those questions.
Okay. So, first of all, my name is spelled Apryl. It's a Y, not an I. So it's Apryl Miller. So my website is, www.aprylmiller.com. And you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook art page is The Apryl Miller Zeitgeist, because I live in the Apryl Miller Zeitgeist. And you can find me on Instagram. It's at Apryl Miller Art. And my Twitter account is at April26. And then I'm just Apryl Miller on LinkedIn too. So those are all of my social media platforms. And if you'd like to take a look at my daughter's accounts, the older one, her name is Dylan, and she's on Instagram at Dylan Sparkle. And then my other daughter, who's the one in the band, she's at Baby in Paisleys on Instagram. So you can see what their style looks like and everything. Yeah. So my questions for Wynn, I want to know what your favorite book is, Wynn. I'm very curious about that.
The Secret Life of Bees, and I know you can still find that on Amazon. And I listen to podcasts more than I listen to audiobooks, although I do have access to a Kindle app, so I should be reading more books than I do, but The Secret Life of Bees would be my favorite book.
Tell me why.
Because I love the mystery of the bees, and just like the mystery of the butterflies, bees in themselves have a mystery, and we're talking about beekeeping, which is a very difficult job. I mean, you can get stung by 1,000 bees and never recover. So the mystery of that book is something special to me. Also, I listened to it on audio tape, and that's why I put my books on audio tape, because I'm realizing that people like audio more than they like Kindle books, more than they like books, because they can listen to it on go, just like a podcast too.
Yeah. My other question is, this always interests me, this particular question, because on your list of questions for me, you asked, who would you like, if you could have anyone educate you, who would it be? So I'm curious how you would answer that for yourself.
Okay, the tables get turned on me. Well, I have a mentor that, she's actually my editor that she doesn't even know she's my mentor now. And, I would like to go sit with her. She's on the East Coast, quite frankly. She's not even near me. And so she's on the East Coast. And I would like to go sit with her and just see how she stays so calm, because she not only writes books, holds a degree in English, and she also has a disabled son. And every time I talk to her, even if it's chaos, she seems so calm.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's like, are you kidding me? Like today we had a little bit of the edit snafu with my book. Not an editing problem, a formatting problem, and someone else tried to jump in, and it's like, yeah, I won't let that person jump in again. And so she stayed so calm as we were sending emails back and forth. He was about to kill me too, because I'm like, I want this book now, but Patience is not my middle name. Patience is not my middle name. Being accommodating is my middle name. And so a lot of the morning I spent, okay, you want to make this book perfect. You have to be patient. You have to be accommodating. There's no questions about that. You don't have a traditional publishing deal yet, so you can't always get what you want when you are self-publishing. And so, talk about creative control. You have more creative control of a self-published book than you do a traditional published book. And I'm not saying that a traditional published book is a bad thing, and I'm not saying I won't take a traditional publishing deal. They just have to let me have creative control, because CP in general is very creative. We're not mathematics in the least. And so they just have to let me have creative control. So to go back to your question, April, who would I like to be educated by? I would love to be educated by my editor, just to see how she does it on a normal project and how she stays so dang calm. So dang calm when her, I believe she has an able-bodied child too, but her disabled son is going through heck right now, and it's like, really? You are staying so calm for this particular person, and then you have me on top of it dealing with a disability in book here, and it's like, really, she's my hero. She's my hero, despite the fact that she wants to kill me. Well, most editors do want to kill me. At this point, most editors do want to kill me. I've gone to 3 editors over time. This will be my last editor that I use, and my last editor, meaning I'm not kicking her to the curb, I'm sticking with her, I'm paying her what she's worth, and yeah, this will be my last editing change, you guys. That's a surprise for you guys, but I would like to be educated by her, and I also got educated by my graphic design team, which was an education in itself, but doing a print book cover. But I would like to be educated by my editor and someone that holds English degree, and someone that is sharing my story out with the wall in print format.
Okay, that's interesting. That sounds good.
Why does that interest you? Why were you shocked at my answer?
Well, I didn't know what you'd say. I had no idea, but I certainly understand the concept of wanting someone to teach you how to be calm. I totally can relate to that. Because,
well, it's not about being calm necessarily. It's about writing a good book too.
Yes,
it's about writing a good book.
Yes, but also maintaining while you're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
calm on
yes,
doing that.
Yes, and doing this project, a certain type of project. Yeah, because that makes sense because you've written all these books, and it's, I don't know. I find writing to be it can either be wonderful or I just want to, shoot myself in the head because it's one or the other. It's either, well, I'm cruising here, oh, hey, this is great, and then you have to go back and you have to start editing, or maybe all of a sudden you're cruising and then you lose your train of thought, and so then you can't, you don't know how to find it, and the mojo's gone, and so it's just, I do have a friend who writes for the New York Times, and she says, oh, I love writing, and I'm like, okay, good for you. Because most people I know that write, I mean, yes, they love it, but it's difficult. It's difficult. Because, sometimes the writing is your lover and loves you. Other times the writing doesn't want anything to do with you. What are you doing here? Why don't you leave? So it's not wonderful all the time.